I woke up with a smile. It was my 8th birthday, and I couldn't wait to share it with Sadie, my best friend. We walked to school together. Later that night, my family sat for dinner promptly at 6 p.m. My Muti and Vati and little brother and me. Earlier that day, I gave every student in my classroom a piece of chocolate wrapped in shiny blue foil. You see, my parents taught me that when you celebrate a birthday, you give gifts to others. Vati, I started to say. I wanted to tell him how excited my fellow students were about the chocolate. It was scarce. They were excited about their gift, but I stopped. Speaking without first being spoken to could result in a slap across the face, even on your birthday. 2 days later, the Royal Air Force began raining bombs on Köln, our hometown. Mid-December, I found a hand-addressed card in my mailbox. It was from my great-granddaughter Jessica. Dear Grandma, can I come visit you between Christmas and New Year's? Love, Jessica. I turned the card over to see if anything was written on the back. There wasn't. Why did Jessica want to come visit? My grandchildren and great-grandchildren barely know me, and I know little of their lives. Even my own children feel distant.
Hi, Grandma.
Willkommen. Oh, hello, hello. Oh. Oh.
How do you like my Italian vibe?
You look expensive. Come, take off your coat, sit down. For tomorrow, I have made us traditional German food. Assorted cheeses, 3 kinds of sausage, breads, and mustards.
Oh, I should have told you before I came. I'm a vegetarian. You do know sausage is filled with poisonous preservatives.
Yeah, but I'm still here.
Grandma, I have exciting news. I'm applying to be an exchange student in Germany.
Germany, yeah, not Italy.
Well, I already know my Italian side from my dad. I don't know anything about the half of me that's German. I want to hear about life in Germany.
You mean my life? That's in the past. There's nothing to say.
But, Grandma, what about your family?
My Muti and Vati and little brother, we lived in an apartment. Every night after dinner, my Vati wound his prized silver pocket watch. Our meals ran by his watch. Frühstück, 7 a.m. Mittagessen, noon. Abendbrot, 6 p.m.
I know those words. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
So, did you go to school?
Of course, yeah. I passed Sadie's apartment in the next block. She was my best friend, and we walked to school together.
And what did your father do?
He worked for the government. I know he was a Nazi. I can barely bring myself to say the word. One night, I woke up when he came home late, and from a crack in my bedroom door, I could see that his pants were torn and bloodied, and he was wearing a saber. Later that night was called Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass. A few days earlier, our teacher called Sadie and me to the front of the class. She asked the other students to look at us and compare our eyes, nose, and hair with pictures in a book. Which one is Aryan, she asked. They are a special race that will carry Germany 1,000 years into the future. We returned to our seats in silence. Every year, my Vati took his watch to Heinen, a master watch repairer, for cleaning. This year, he threw it in a kitchen drawer and never spoke about having it cleaned by him again. Vati said, "Shop closed. The monkey is sick."
Grandma, were you alive during the war?
Yeah, I was.
How scary was that?
We went on living. After the bombing started, we listened for the air raid sirens, and we'd run into the cellar for shelter. One night, we had fresh snow, followed by clear skies and a full moon. It was bright as day. The bombs fell so close, we could hear them buzzing in our shelter before they exploded.
Oh my God.
Everything went black. Outside, the streets were full of flames. We could smell burning flesh. Our apartment windows were all broken, and our stuff had all flown out. The next morning, I learned that Sadie's apartment building was destroyed. My best friend was dead. After the first night of bombing, nobody talked about it much. It was, what good would it do? It was time to move on.
Just move on?
Yeah, the trains were still running. So my Muti and Vati, my Vati stayed to work, but my Muti and little brother and I, we left the city. After a half of a day, we reached a tiny village. A farm family let us live in a house on their land. Oh, it was just a shack, a couple of rooms. We used an outhouse, and the only running water in the house was a faucet. That was our kitchen. And we had a wood stove for cooking and eating and eating.
It sounds like summer camp. So how long did you stay there?
Several years.
Several years?
Yeah, there was nowhere to move. One day, Muti was summoned to appear in the next village with me and my brother. She said, "We're not going." And the next morning, she put dried branches and newspaper into a burn barrel, lit a match, and told me to bring down all our personal documents. She added them to the flames, along with our copy of Mein Kampf.
You had a copy of Mein Kampf?
Every German household had one. A few weeks later, the wireless broadcast, "Our Fuhrer Adolf Hitler has fallen. The war is over." The next day, my Muti told me she was half Jewish. Not even my Vati knew. Her refusal to answer that summon and the American liberators saved our lives.
So what did people say after the war was over?
Nobody talked about it. We stayed on in the village. One afternoon when I was 16, I decided to go to a dance at a beer hall. It was full of American GIs. Frank Sinatra's Always was playing on the jukebox. And the air was thick with cigarette smoke and the smell of beer.
Did anyone ask you to dance?
Well, I barely knew how to dance, but one soldier taught me a few steps. We tried to speak a few words, and we laughed, and he had a warm smile. We laughed together.
So did you see him again?
Yeah, we went to another dance. Even though I didn't know English, I knew he was talking about America. We went dancing a second time. And when we left the hall, I had already had some beers. He poured me a glass of vodka from a bottle in his car. Soon everything was hazy, and I vaguely remember following him into a wooded area nearby. My dance partner was transferred shortly. Never knowing he had fathered Petra, my first child, and Jessica's grandmother.
So what happened to the guy that you met at the dance?
He was transferred to the States.
And then?
And then I got a job with a doctor and his wife in a bigger town. I stayed in their house for the weeknights, and I went home on the weekends. I had to walk 2.5 hours each way.
I can't believe how far you walked.
There was no public transportation. I worked so we'd have money to live on. One day, I was walking home late afternoon. A jeep with 2 American soldiers slowed, and one of them asked if I would like a ride. I was tired. I gratefully climbed into the back. Then the driver turned down a narrow wooded trail. I knew I had made A huge mistake. They forced me out of the car, pushed me onto the ground, and raped me. When I was sure they had left, I ran home. I told no one. 9 months later, I gave birth to a son. He was gravely ill, and we took him to a hospital that was still understaffed. On one of my visits, I could tell that no one was looking after Klaus. I was sure he would die there. So I unhooked needles and tubes and grabbed him and strode out the front door. My Mutti nursed him back to health and cared for Petra while I looked for another job.
Couldn't you have found work closer to home?
Yeah, but then I met Wayne. We were engaged 3 months before he was transferred stateside. He gave me some money and told me to come to the States later.
How much later did you come?
I got a letter from him in English. I couldn't read it, so I threw it out. I never heard from him again. After I had already received and thrown Wayne's letter out, I learned I was pregnant with his child, that I named Thomas. Not too long after that, I met Bryce. He was a master sergeant. He reminded me of my Vati. And my mother and my brother liked him.
So you finally met a guy who stayed around, huh?
Bryce and I were married in the village. And we came to the States on a troop carrier. Shortly after I arrived, I learned I was pregnant with our daughter.
Wait, was Sergeant Bryce my great-grandfather?
Bryce promised to adopt my other children. And when he was transferred, we accompanied him as a family. But Klaus was left behind. We couldn't afford his medical care. And Bryce had met a lawyer who wanted to adopt the child with his wife. So when Klaus was just 3 years old, I bought a soft blue rabbit with floppy ears and handed them both to the couple. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. His adoptive parents were Jewish. His Mutti was forced onto a bus headed for the concentration camp when she was a teenager, but she was able to escape through a door undetected. We were two mothers bound by one son, escaping a similar fate as the war ground down. Shortly, Bryce was reassigned to Japan. I followed in the next, about 3 months later, with the rest of our children. But I came back to the States about a year after.
All by yourself?
Things weren't going good between me and Bryce.
Was he my great-grandfather?
Thomas was playing with Japanese kids when they all started throwing rocks at passing trains. When he came home, my husband beat him so hard with a belt that the buckle broke his sternum. I decided right then and there to leave him and come back to the States.
You won't tell me about my great-grandfather. I still know almost nothing about your life in Germany. I might as well drive home tonight instead of staying over like I planned.
Jessica. The soldier I met at the dance, I liked him. After so much sadness, he made me smile. I had never had alcohol, and one night he poured me too much. He never knew about the baby. He was transferred shortly. I didn't know his last name.
There's a name for that, Grandma. It's called date rape. Was he my great-grandfather?
Yeah, he was.
I'm a descendant of date rape? Does my grandmother know about her father?
I told you he was American, and this is the truth. Oh, no one asked details. Not until you, Jessica. I see something of myself in you. You deserve to know all about my children and their fathers. Let's get a good night rest. And I'll tell you about it in the morning.
Okay, Grandma.
Sleep good.
Good night.
Good night, Mildred. American men marched through American streets today, carrying flags with swastikas on them and raising their arms in Nazi salutes.